Good morning. Welcome to VFC. Happy to have you here today. My name's Adam. I'll be filling in for TJ. Can we do this? Can we just give it up for our staff and TJ and the whole staff, Pastor Josh, everybody. Such a great job. We're so blessed. If you are new here, I've been gone for about a month. So it's funny. I ran into a guy at the gym, and while I was on sabbatical, and he's like, I've been going to that gym for years and years, and I see him almost every day, and we just, hi, how you doing type of stuff. And he was like, are you a pastor? And I was like, yeah. And he said, I thought I saw you on a video, but then somebody else has been preaching the last month. So he just started coming like the day that I left. He's been like for a whole month, and he hadn't seen me. So he's like, I'm confused here. So if you're new, I've been gone for a month, but happy to be back. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder. That's not true for everything. Sometimes you realize my life is better without it. But for you guys, that's so true, man. I love this church. I'm so honored to be able to pastor here, and so grateful for you. Next week, I'm gonna talk a little bit more, kind of about what the Lord spoke to me over the last month or so, and so lived pretty much disconnected from almost everything in life for 5 weeks. Was pretty awesome. So we'll talk a little about it next week. But I'm going to jump into today. What's the greatest sports movie of all time? There's a right and wrong answer. Rudy? No. The Program? No. Sandlot? Close, but not in the top 10. Remember the Titans? That's number 2 for sure. Blindside? Yeah, I can for sure. Maybe top 20. Possibly. Come on, you guys aren't there yet. Hoosiers, yes. Who said Hoosiers? Yes, Hoosiers. Christy said Hoosiers. Oh, you've heard this before. So, Hoosiers. I grew up. It was like probably one of the first movies I think that I ever watched as a little kid. I grew up. We watched that movie all the time growing up. So it is a little bit sentimental. I was born. I lived the first 5 years of my life in a town called Kearney, Oklahoma, population like 12, and so I think there's something in me that kind of relates to the small town people making it big. And how many of you have never seen Hoosiers? Oh my goodness, are you serious? It's on your list. It's been out for 35 years. It's not like it just came out like 2 weeks ago. Long list, yeah. Must be a long list. So, okay, so I'm gonna ruin it for you, but it's been 35 years, so that's your fault, not mine. So it's this very, very small town, Hickory, Indiana, and a small basketball school. And so they end up, and here's the cool thing about Indiana, they don't do it anymore, but they used to do it where at their postseason tournament was all the classes played together. So it wasn't like a 2A, 3A, 4A, it was like all of them came together and you have one state champion. And so this little bitty school, Hickory, Indiana, the Hickory Huskers, they go through and they win, and I'll make a really long story as short as possible. They get to the final championship game, and they're in this massive arena. Their whole town could fit in like one half of the arena, so they've never been anything quite this big. And Gene Hackman is like, like the goal's still only 10 feet tall, and you'll notice the free throw line. He's like just doing all the dimensions. He says it's all the same. It's just the arena's bigger, and so they're this massive underdog. It's the awesome underdog story, and they go into the locker room and they have a chaplain, and then the chaplain opens up the Bible, and he's going to try to inspire them because they're the massive underdog. And what passage does he preach? David and Goliath, right? There's only, like, that's the greatest underdog story in the history of the world is the story of David and Goliath. And so today we're gonna talk about a very familiar story, but maybe look at it from a slightly different perspective. And the story of David and Goliath, like it's like you don't have to grow up in church to know the story of David and Goliath. Like it's in movies, it's in pop culture. Justin Bieber sang a song about it. So like if the Biebs is singing about it, like everybody knows, right? Everybody knows the story of David and Goliath. We're going to look at 1 Samuel chapter 17. I'm going to jump around a lot of 17. So if you have a Bible, just keep it open there and we'll go back and forth. Verse 2. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another with the valley between them. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? Are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he's able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." Then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Sometimes I like to preach a passage that's a little bit obscure and you guys don't know how it ends, or some of you don't know how it ends. And it's like this is not one of those. Like there are no cliffhangers. It's not like what happens here. Like we all know David is about to kill Goliath. So it's not a big cliffhanger. But again, I want to look at it a little bit different because there's a guy named Malcolm Gladwell who writes a ton of leadership books. And I love his leadership books. I've read all of his I think I read all of his books. He's got a blog. I read his blogs. He's done some stuff on video. I watch his videos. Like I love Malcolm Gladwell. And several years ago, he wrote a book. And in the book, the book is all about David not being an underdog. And to be honest with you, I get irritated at old Malcolm. Like we're not friends, but I'm mad at you, bro. Like why don't you stick to leadership? Like don't tell me David ain't the underdog. Like you're not a pastor, you're not a theologian, you didn't go to Bible college like I did. Like I know this world, this is my world. You stay in your lane, I'll stay in my lane. And then I read it, and I think he's right. And I think I'm wrong. Oh yeah, Malcolm's smarter than me. And so I begin to, and I've never heard anybody talk about it like that. And so I begin to really dig into some of the historical context and the culture. And then I begin thinking, what if I've understood this passage wrong my whole life? What if David's not the underdog? What if actually the odds were always stacked in David's favor? What if he was prepared to defeat the Goliath in that moment? And then I thought this, well, if that's true for that, what if I don't ever have to be the underdog in my life? What if you don't ever have to be the underdog in your life? What if you could stack the deck in your favor to be successful in your marriage, in raising your children, in your health, in your finances, in your purpose? What if we never went through life as the underdog? Because the reality is, I don't want to be the underdog in life. It's cool for a movie, but in life, you usually lose. I don't want to be the underdog. I want to be an overcomer. I want to be more than a conqueror. That's what I want to be. See, David might not have been the underdog because he was prepared when nobody else was watching. Check this out, verse 34. Now, Saul had been trying to talk David out of it. Saul's the king, and Saul's like, you're going to get, like, this ain't a good idea. You're going to get killed. You're not big enough. You're not strong enough. This armor won't even fit you. And so here is David's response. David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both a lion and a bear. This uncircumcised Philistine," he didn't need to say uncircumcised. He just made it personal. You know what I mean? Like, he's just like, I'm getting, like, watch this. "This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied the armies of the living God." He chased down a lion and a bear. He chased it down. Y'all remember, it's been several years ago now, there was a guy that was jogging on a trail in the mountains of Colorado, and a mountain lion came out, and he killed him. Y'all remember that? Like, I watched a lot. It was on every major news station. I think it's maybe been 5 or 6 years ago now. It was like every major news station. This guy's just going on his daily jog in whatever city he's in Colorado. Mountain lion comes out. And I watched a couple of the interviews. One thing I never saw anybody ask him is, like, at what moment do you think, yeah, we got to fight? Like, you know what I mean? Like there's these moments that you're like I just think, like, I try to put myself in the like when I watch a story or when I watch a movie, like most dudes, I think when you watch Rocky, you know, you try to act like you're a boxer, you know. When I was a little kid, I did push-ups in my room when I watched Rocky, you know. It's like, yeah, you know. And then when I watched Jason Bourne, I think I'm a whatever that is. And so I try to think, like, what would I do? What would I do if I was attacked by a mountain lion? Like, I think first I try to be still. Maybe he didn't notice me, you know. And then, just based on what I've learned from the Discovery Channel, I think I make myself big, right? They say make yourself big. So you just yell, make yourself really big and see if you scare him away. And then you throw rocks at him. But I just don't think, in my brain, I'm not very tough. So in my brain, I don't think there's ever a moment where I'm just like, all right, bro, let's roll. Like, I just don't, that doesn't enter my brain. I would rather run and hope that he trips. Like, I don't think that ends well. So at what moment does this guy say, I'm just gonna choke a mountain lion out? It's just weird to me. And this story makes national news, and here we have David saying, that's like a slow Tuesday for me. Like, this is his life. He said, Saul, I've been here before. I chased after lions. I'm chasing after bears, and I'm killing them. This ain't nothing for me. I got this. I prepared for this moment. Here's what I love about Malcolm Gladwell's book. He explained that the slingshot was one of the greatest weapons in the ancient world. He said the stone that comes from the sling has a stopping power equivalent to a bullet from a .45 caliber pistol. Okay, so that changes the game, right? David's, he's agile, he's young, he's quick, he's strong, and he's a deadly shot. So it's not really about like this kid with this toy slingshot, like we think, like ding, like it's not really a story about that. Maybe it's more like Billy the Kid with a revolver. Maybe Goliath was actually bringing a sword to a gunfight. When I was a little kid, my grandparents had a farm, and my grandfather, he welded this swing set and play thing from leftover oil filled pipe, and so me and my brother, there was an area we would set up our like used soda cans, and we would have little BB guns and we'd target practice. One day actually I shot and hit the metal, and it came back, hit my brother in the forehead. He still has he was at the 10 o'clock day. He still has a scar on his forehead from that, like 35 years ago. And so we just had target practice. We love shooting guns. I love our little BB guns, and we shot all kinds of other stuff. It was just fun, and I just imagine like David day after day in a field with this slingshot was about 3 feet long. I imagine day after day he's in this field. Nobody's around. Nobody's watching. Target practice. I imagine he marks a tree. Whoom, nails it. And he gets farther away. Whoom. Day after day, sees a squirrel. I got it. Nails it. You just kind of wonder, day after day, he's working on his craft. He's perfecting his craft, not knowing that Goliath is even coming. It's important to understand that David was not preparing for Goliath. David was trying to be faithful where God had him today. Oftentimes, we think, I want to prepare for the future, and God says, be faithful where you were today. David was developing where he was, not looking for an opportunity where he wasn't. See, understand, there is a process to your purpose. And the process is oftentimes a lion and a bear before you ever get to Goliath. It's preparation for the greatness that God has for every single one of us. Pastor Doug, he's been on our staff for 5.5 years. He oversees our leadership college, Pastor Doug and Jill. And I've known them forever. They've been just dear friends, incredible people. Actually, when I was in 6th grade, Doug was my first youth pastor. And my parents, he was only there for a little bit. It was like an interim thing. And he would come to my house, and we would play NBA Jam, and my mom would buy Little Caesars pizza. And he would mentor us as me and my brother as middle school students. And my parents liked him so much. When he was a youth pastor in Houston a couple years later, they sent me down to spend spring break with him. I mean, that's how much. And so I spent a week with them in Houston. So I've known them and loved them for years and years. About 15 years ago, I was talking to Doug, and he was really skinny. And I was like, bro, you're really skinny. And he said, I've been on a long fast. And he did a 40-day full fast. A lot of us act like we fast, like I'm fasting broccoli for the month, It's great. But he was a full fast. Like I think he had broth. Is all he had. He drank some broth. Is all he had for 40 days. And he would do 3-day fast, 10-day fast, 21-day fast, 40-day fast. And so he's one of the only dudes I know that's in like multiple 40-day fasts. And so that was about 15 years ago. You fast forward a couple of years, so probably 12, 13 years ago now. I had a son named Grayson, and Grayson got diagnosed with neuroblastoma, which is a cancerous tumor. And I remember in those moments, and Doug was so respected in our world, in the ministry world. I remember in those moments, there was like these blogs and these websites, and they had these wristbands that said, "Pray for Gray." And he was in Children's Hospital, and Bob Stoops would come into the room several times. A lot of the players would wear their "Pray for Gray" wristbands as they played at OU. And I mean, it's just all over the country. People are just praying for this kid. I mean, Doug and Jill are some of the most faithful people. So good to me in my life. Such a great mentor and friend. And you just watch him struggle so much. And a couple years of this horrific cancer eventually took little Grayson's life. And I remember a couple years ago doing a little interview with Doug when we were about to take the church on a 21-day prayer and fasting. And I thought Doug has the most experience and knowledge about this. And so I said, man, kind of take us through the process of why. And he said, I didn't know at the moment. He said, I just was certain that God called me to do it. And so I started with a 1 day, then I went to a 3-day, and then I just worked my way up to where I started getting to 40. And he said, I didn't know. I just he says, it's one of those few times I just know the Lord had asked me to do this. He said, looking back, He was trying to prepare me to sustain me in the midst of the worst season and most difficult time of my life. I know some are like, I don't want to be preparing for that. Somebody like, I'm never fasting. I don't want to, But the reality is, and I've seen so many different stats, I don't actually know what's true. But there's several statistics that would say 80% of couples get divorced after the loss of a child. There's just too much difficulty, too much trauma. Here's what I know. Doug and Jill's marriage is healthy. Their ministry is healthy. They're thriving. They're leading our leadership college here, doing an incredible job, mentoring young pastors, young ministers, the future of ministry in our church and all over the country. Their son is one of our youth pastors now. It's cool that Doug was my youth pastor when I was in 6th grade, and now his son was my kid's youth pastor when they were in 6th grade. It's cool to see some stuff full circle. See, oftentimes when I preach a message like this, we think, oh, God's preparing me for greatness. And God does prepare you for greatness. But God also prepares you to make it through life's most difficult moments and get on the other side of the storm. Sometimes God calls us to do stuff that will not make sense until we look in the rearview mirror. Some of the stuff that God calls you, it won't make sense maybe for decades from now. But when God calls, we simply say yes. You want God to use you in the future? Be faithful to where He has you today. Be faithful. Simple principles. You want to get a promotion? Let's get really practical. You want to get a promotion? Get to work early tomorrow and leave late. I know that's a foreign concept. people, something happened after COVID. Y'all heard about this quiet quitting thing? I don't even know what that means, but I just think it's where you don't work anymore. You just still get a paycheck. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. If I find out our staff is quiet quit, I will officially make them quit. Fire you. You want God to bless you financially? Be disciplined in your finances. Begin tithing. Stop spending money on stuff that you don't have the money for. You want God to use you to do great things? Serve His people today. You want to have a peace and a joy? Start forgiving those that have wronged you today. What you do, the hard work that you do, the heart work that you do, the soul work that you do that nobody sees will prepare you for what God has for your future. This is not a story about a kid that God just randomly picks for this random moment. No, this is a story about a kid who God meticulously and purposefully prepared for years. The shift, we shift the thinking about David not necessarily being an underdog. I think sometimes we think, well, that minimizes the power of God in this moment. It doesn't minimize the power of God in the moment. Maybe it just maximizes the power of God's preparation for the moment. And listen, I grew up charismatic. I lean that very charismatic way, and so I can bash charismatics because I am one. That's how it works, right? If you are one, you can bash it, right? That's how it works. Nobody else can, but I can. And here's, well, if you grew up that way, you can too. Here's the thing, like us charismatics, we just want to be lazy in our disciplines and just believe God for the miraculous, don't we? Like we'd just rather fix it at an emotional altar call experience as opposed to actually dig into God's word for a month. Like, no offense, guys, but a lot of offense. And then we're not even preparing, and then something comes and God doesn't do the miraculous, and you're like, when we start blaming God, He's like, no, I've been trying to get you to be prepared for this for decades, and you just keep waiting on me to. He was prepared and he was positioned for greatness. Check this out, verse 17. Now Jesse said to his son David, take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of the unit. Like, we think charcuterie board's like a new trend. No, old. See it right here. See how your brothers are and bring back some assurance from them. There was Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah fighting against the Philistines. Early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd, loaded up and set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. We got to spend 10 days in Hawaii. I think we got back a little over a week ago. And it was a cool vacation. And typically, like, Hawaii is really expensive. I don't know if anybody told you that. It's heartbreakingly expensive. So, I'm just pretty cheap, right? So even if I have the money for something, it's hard for me. Just how we grew up, I'm just like I'm pretty tight, and so this vacation we spent a little bit of money, but most of our vacations I try to find the cheapest way possible to allow my family to have fun and save money at the same time. And so a few years ago, I think about 4 years ago, I guess, we went to Branson, and I was like, man, we're gonna go to Branson. We're gonna have a great family vacation. And anybody ever been to Great Wolf Lodge? Yeah, we didn't stay there because we couldn't afford it. And so, but there's another hotel that online looks like the Great Wolf Lodge. And so I was like, I'll go there. I will save like 60% of the money, and my kids will have the same experience. And so we drove up to Branson. We went to Lambert's where they throw rolls at your face, and you just ask them for a roll. Y'all been to Lambert's? It's awesome. And so my kids are having a great vacation because they just raise their hand. They throw a roll at them from across the restaurant. They grab the roll. It's great. It was a good vacation. I'm like, I'm father of the year. And so So we drive in. I'm following my phone to get to our hotel, and I pull in this place. It's like a storefront. And I'm like, this doesn't feel right. And so I walk in, and I said, I'm trying to find this hotel. And she's like, this is it. And I was like, okay. And she handed me a key. And like usually you go to a hotel, you get like a credit card type of key. In Hawaii, they gave us a wristband. You just put it up next to the door, and it automatically unlocks. I'm bougie nowadays, people. But this was like a key. It was a key. It was a metal key. I was like, oh, this is weird. And she said, you're going to have to drive around. It was a motel, not a hotel, which that's fine. No judgment here. Just wasn't what I was anticipating. And so we drove around. All the doors are painted pink. I'm not making any of this up. All the doors are painted pink. And we were on the second floor. They did not have an elevator, or if they did, I did not see it. And so I've got my luggage and Christy's luggage. I got the 2 suitcases, and I'm going up the concrete steps. You know how you like ta ta ta, and I can feel Christy's eyes burning a hole in the back of my skull. And listen, I'm not prophetic. Like a lot of pastors, they're prophetic, and God speaks to them all the time. It's prophetic. I'm not prophetic, but I know in that moment, Christy, I know what she was thinking. I hate you. That's what she was thinking. How did you do this to your family? We get up these stairs, and I'm not making this up. You think I'm making this up? I'm not. Christy is my witness. We get up there, and there's a man that's standing right in front of our door, because his door is right next to our door. And he's in cowboy boots, cut off jean shorts, no shirt, smoking a cigarette. And my daughter, she hates. Listen, you can have a lot of sin in your life, and my daughter will not judge you. But if you're a smoker, she's just judgy. I've tried to work with her. I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying she hates it. So she's like, Dad, he's smoking. I'm like, shut your mouth. It's fine. We get to our room. It's hideous. It smells bad. It's musty, mildewy smell. But they do have a water park. So I'm like, all right, let's go to the water park. So we get to the water park, and it's about as big as this room, the indoor water park. And there's 4 billion kids in there. And my kids want to get in this lazy river. And I'm like, guys, I don't think that's a good idea. That's why I said, because that's like 90% urine and 10% chlorine. I just think it's a bad idea. They're like, well, Dad, we're here. We want to get in. I'm like, all right, just don't open your mouth. And every 5 minutes, this buzzer would go off. And this bucket, so the buzzer goes off, all the kids come running, and this bucket tips over, and the water falls out. And I don't know why it's that cool, but every kid in the place. So after 2 or 3 times, my kids are in a little lazy river, buzzer goes off, they jump out and they run and they get under too, and this massive bucket tips over and every kid gets wet. I'm like, I'm happy to do that at the house. I'll throw buckets of water in your face all day long. That's fun for me too. Saved a bunch more money. See, the water, buzzer goes off, the water was always going to be pouring out. But it was up to my kids to position themselves to be able to be underneath the water. See, I think it's important for us to understand that God is always moving. Always. The powerful, all-knowing God of the universe, He is always moving. He is always working. He is always restoring. He is always healing. He is always setting people free. God is always pouring out His Spirit on His people. I just wonder if you are positioned to be a part of it. Sometimes we look at people and we think, man, why does God always bless them? Why does this always happen for them? Well, why won't God not do this for me? Maybe God likes them more. Maybe they have a secret code. Maybe they figure something out. No, they don't have a secret code, and God doesn't like them more than He likes you. They are just positioning themselves differently than you. We think we want to position yourself for greatness. We think I got to network with the right people. That's a big thing. I got to network. I got to have the right relationship. I got to have a seat at the table. Or my table's not big enough. I got to have a seat at a bigger table. I got to gain influence. I need more likes and comments and shares on social media. I need this. I need that. I need to be recognized for my accomplishments. David did not position himself by looking for an opportunity. He positioned himself by serving his brothers, who also happened to be his greatest critics. He learned to serve his brothers so he could serve the king, who was also wicked and tried to kill him, and he still served him. Later, he learned to serve as the king. But had he not been faithful to his father to serve the people that were criticizing, he would have never been in position to kill the giant. When you look at the life of David, he was anointed king far away from any sort of significance. He was just tending the sheep with his dad, his father's field. Then he was anointed king. And you would think, man, he's going to be the second king of God's chosen people, the Israelites. You would think, okay, let's get him. Let's put him in the most prestigious school. Let's get him all these great mentors, because he will be the next king of God's people. But you know what they did instead? They said, go back and clean some poop up in the field. Shepherd boy. He went back to serving. Well, why? Because you can be anointed but not yet announced. People all the time, they're anointed, but I see them take that leap. And sometimes God's calling you to take the leap of faith. But other times God is trying to prepare you, and you jump out ahead of him and you destroy it. So we need to understand, platforms don't make you. They expose you. Our church has grown. We've had some success. Got 4 campuses, 70 staff, and we'll have 5,000 or 6,000 people today. It's great, right? I'll just be honest with you. I'm more insecure in my ability to lead as I ever have been in my entire life. Why? Because the bigger things get, the more every single flaw, weakness, and insecurity that I have gets exposed. See, God often anoints before he announces so he can prepare you and position you. Can you be anointed king and go back to serving in the field? Because if you can't, you're not ready in the first place. One of my friends, he always says this. He's actually one of my youth pastors growing up. Still a really close friend of mine. He always says, you know if you're really a servant by how you respond when you're treated like a servant. And I don't really like how that feels. Because I'm like, I want to serve, but I don't want you to treat me like a servant. You know what I mean? You know you're truly a servant by how you respond when you're treated like one. That's how you know your heart is pure. I have a good friend. He's preached here a whole bunch. His dad had pastored a church in Albuquerque, New Mexico for several decades. And my friend, he's about my age. Incredible. He's brilliant, incredible communicator of God's word. This guy, he's sharp, he's talented, he's a great leader. I mean, just everything that you can think, like this guy is going to be, man, just a great pastor. And there was always a plan for him to take over his father's church. And so it had kind of gotten pushed back a little bit farther than my friend thought it was going to. And so he met with his dad, and he said, Dad, like, this is your church, and like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful in any way. I felt like, you know, I would be the senior pastor by now, which no worries, I'm happy for you. Like, again, he wasn't disrespectful. He wasn't saying you got to do this or else. It wasn't an ultimatum. It wasn't anything like that. He just simply said, Dad, I feel like the Lord had called me to be a senior pastor, so I'm gonna look for other opportunities to be a senior pastor somewhere else. And so his father said, why don't you just pray, fast for 30 days, see what the Lord tells you. And he said, I'm going to support whatever you want to do in your life, son. He said, okay. So my friend, he prays, and he fasts, and he comes back 30 days, meets with his father. And his dad said, what did the Lord tell you? And he said, Dad, I just want to serve you. I just want to serve God's house. If I'm never the senior pastor, I don't even care. And his dad looked at him and said, you're ready now. Let's start the transition. Now he pastors a great church. The church is growing. It's thriving. They got a campus now in Maui. I actually got to preach at their campus when I was there. They have a campus in Maui. God gave us a campus in Chickasha and him a campus in Maui. Seems the same. I'm just kidding. I love Chickasha. Don't send me any emails. I love our Chickasha campus. I do. But it ain't Hawaii. No, it ain't. I think sometimes we struggle to find those God opportunities. We want this God moment. And really, I just think we need to begin asking ourselves, where am I serving? Who am I serving? Because that's where greatness from God always comes from. And then lastly, I'll close with this. I know I'm over time. I'll close with this. David had a different perception. Verse 26, David asked the men standing near him, what will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Jump around, verse 45. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with the sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Everyone else saw a giant. David focused on the power of God. He didn't make it about him, though. He didn't make it about Goliath. He made it all about God. Verse 48, as the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead. He fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. My father used to always tell me, he'd say, Adam, you are really good at making a mountain out of a molehill. And he was right. I perfected that over 41 years. I'm so good at that. My greatest skill. You know, most of the things that I've worried about never actually happen. Most of the things that stress you out never actually going to happen. I know Goliath, he won a lot of battles. I understand that. But I also wonder if it wasn't because everybody who fought him was defeated before they even came in. I wonder if he wasn't actually like the middle school bully who just needed to get punched in the face to leave everybody alone. And if you're in middle school, I'm not advocating you punching a bully in the face. I don't want that email either. I'm just telling you, oftentimes our greatest giant is actually our perception. We tend to think way too much of our obstacles and way too little of our God. We may think about our finances, and we really need to be thinking about our provider. We think about our health issue, and we really need to be thinking about our healer. We think about our past sin, and we really need to be thinking about Jesus, who is our forgiver. See, David wasn't focused on Goliath. He wasn't listening to the critics. He was just full of faith and confident in his preparation. Look, everybody in this room, you got giants. Sin, insecurities, financial, health, relational. I don't know, but everybody in this room, it's different for everybody, but everybody in this room has some sort of giant. And then we all have voices. There's critical voices that are coming at us. There's the enemy. There's a really real enemy, the devil, that's chirping away at us. And then usually the worst voice for most of us is that inner voice. Most of the time the enemy ain't the devil. Most of the time the enemy is the inner me. It's that voice saying, you're not good enough. You'll always be like this. You're too young, you're too old, you're not educated, you're not experienced. They're not going to love you. You can't handle it. You're not that. We're making a mountain out of a molehill. Because God came, and it's not about you. It's about the power of God inside of you. You know what? Yeah, you can't. You can't do it. Yeah, you are either too young or too old. You are not educated enough. Whatever you think, oh, I can't because of this, you're right, you can't. But thankfully, you're not doing it on your own. You can through the God that lives and dwells inside of you. I can't do anything on my own. It's not about me, it's about him. So we need to say, by the power of God, I've been alone with the Lord. I've been preparing and positioning myself for victory. And I know that if he is for me, who can be against me? I know that I'm an overcomer and more than a conqueror. See, it's your preparation and your perception and your positioning that allows God to use you in ways you did not dream possible to accomplish more than you can imagine. You got to use you who you're serving. You worried about the difficulty of the storm? Change your perception. Stop making everything bigger than it has to be. Just start focusing on how big your God is, how powerful your God is, how intelligent your God is, how loving your God is, how graceful your God is. The God of the universe. Holds the world in the palm of his hands. Spoke life into existence. All powerful. But at the same time, so personal. Can be with us individually every moment of every day. Love you so much, he sent us in to die so we can be forgiven. The all-powerful, all-knowing God said, I'm going to love you so much in the midst, even, the Bible says, while we were sinners, in your worst moment, the moments you want to forget about, the moments you're most embarrassed of, the moments that you're most full of shame about, in that moment, that's when Jesus came and died for you. And know this, if it had been just you, he still would have done it, because that's how much he loves you. Heavenly Father, we love you and we're grateful for you. God, I'm grateful for your example. God, I'm grateful that your shoulders are big enough. Your strength is great enough. Your wisdom is enough. Your grace is certainly more than enough. Your heads bowed and eyes closed. If you're here in this room and you don't have a relationship with Jesus, but you want to begin serving the God of the universe that loved you so much, he let or sent his son to die so you could be forgiven and so you could be free. You're going to begin living your life for the Lord. If that's you all over this room, you say, I want to be forgiven. I want to begin following Jesus. Will you just slip your hand up in the air so I can pray for you real quick? Thanks. Thanks. Amen. A few of you. Thanks. Awesome. Amen. Everybody pray this prayer together. Say, Heavenly Father, thank you for Jesus. Thank you for the cross and the resurrection. Forgive me my sins. I don't want to live for me anymore. I will live for you every moment of my day because you're my Savior. You're my sacrifice. You're my King, my Lord. Help me to follow you every moment of my life. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, thank you so much for jumping on our YouTube page today. My name is Adam. This is my wife, Christy. We pastor here at Victory Family Church. We talk about family a lot, and we just want to say welcome to our family. Even if you're online, you are still a part of our family. We'd love for you to subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay in touch with us. Hopefully, the content here will help challenge you, encourage you, grow in your relationship with the Lord, and maybe even make you laugh a little bit along the way. So love you, grateful for you. Thanks for joining us.